Excellent. Welcome to TADSummit Innovators. I'm really proud to be chatting with Rob Pickering. Rob is sort of my level set. In a world full of hype and bullshit, Rob is that touch point that you go to really understand, is this real or still hype? So with that said, Rob, please introduce yourself and all your storied history and what you're getting up to at the moment.
Thanks, Alan. Okay, so I'm Rob Pickering. I've been kicking around in the comms industry really since, kind of like mid 80s when I first got my hands on this internet thing. Or didn't really get my hands on it. I actually had to write some code to, run TCP/IP to actually build an internet connection for a British microprocessor vendor. Done a whole load of stuff in building ISPs and internet infrastructure through the 80s and 90s. And then somehow I ended up, kind of in a way going backwards into the telephony industry in the early 2000s because I was running an internet engineering company. I needed a phone system, and I was fed up with the idea of going to the usual suspects. And I'd been playing around with ISDN anyway. So I got my hands on a really early copy of Asterisk, kind of like 0.9 in the 2002, 2003 era. And at the same time, we were also doing some service buildings with backbone networks. And so I kind of like put a wrapper on Asterisk and built a multi-tenant on-prem PBX, built a company around wrapping that with a decent admin UI, and went after a sway of the UK market, really trying to knock Nortel and Avaya out by being a neatly packaged kind of branded solution. That was a company called IPCortex.
Yep.
Grew and ran that because that kind of took over from all the other internet stuff. Grew and ran that organically, sold out in 2019 to one of our resellers, mostly because I was getting more interested in the conversational AI stuff. So I had a bunch of projects that I really, really wanted to do. So, kind of fast forward to the start of 2020, and we all ended up with this COVID thing going on with, offices emptying out. I kind of had this kind of cool idea looking at Dialogflow and some of the technology that was around at that time,
Yeah.
and said, okay, aware of what some of the aid organizations were doing, wouldn't it be really, really great if we could just write a little kind of self-service Dialogflow thing that allowed people to call up and put a set of requirements in, and then it popped out in an SME-friendly way in a Google data sheet. So we kind of went off and did a project to do that. And I kind of thought, well, this is useful in this environment anyway, but I'm sure I can kind of productize this as a kind of SME telephone bot. And that was possibly the stupidest product that I've ever tried to sell. Because I thought that by, simplifying the kind of scripting process for this first gen conversational AI, I could make it SME friendly. But the reality is, you would spend a day onboarding a small business owner for something that you could sell them for like 15 quid a month or something. So it kind of didn't fly. And I had quite a lot of kind of faith and optimism about that early first gen AI, the kind of Lex, Dialogflow kind of stuff, where what you were essentially doing is it was kind of doing a little bit of inferencing, but what you were basically doing is training on a set of hard-coded intents and actions that you wanted it to take.
Exactly.
And I kind of, if you believe the Gartner cycle stuff, and I kind of don't, but I was in the pit of despair at the end of that project. Even the Google Home kicking around the house. I find there are kind of two kinds of people with that first gen technology. Either you kind of chuck it in the bin and just say, I'm fed up with this thing, or you train yourself the way that Alexa wants you to talk in order to get
Exactly. Or you get down to that singular use case where it works. For me, egg timers when my hands are busy.
Oh yeah, I'm in the barn with a chainsaw in my hands, or engine oil or something, or exactly, yeah, in the kitchen. So the pain of the use case has got to be more than the pain of interacting with the thing. Otherwise, give me a sheet of glass, and I
Yeah.
can poke things at. So that I kind of parked the conversational AI thing for a little while after that, because that was a reasonably painful kind of experience.
Yeah.
But I've been doing beta stuff with GPT, the sort of GPT-2, and it looked actually quite sensible in a kind of an idiot savant kind of way. You could do some kind of neat stuff within. And November 22, OpenAI actually released this large language model in a way that's reasonably accessible.
Yeah.
And I just kind of thought, is this the missing piece for conversational AI? If I can use this actually to do that hard intent recognition piece, all the other stuff, plugging it into plumbing, having stuff coming out the back end, that's easy. I'm I'm kind of an internet plumbing guy. I can do that stuff. And so I kind of roughly about this time last year actually started developing inside Asterisk, which is one of the companies I own, this technology to connect OpenAI, ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, the GPT interface, up to phone lines, really as a bit of a platform to experiment with it, maybe to brush off the SME product. Not quite sure at that point, just really as an R&D project. And we put a few different things on it. We built it on top of Jambones, which is an open source project, because, kind of one of my fallbacks is that, you can always release stuff to further the state of the art as an open source project. And, you've not wasted 3 months of your life. You've actually done something useful that someone's going to pick up and use. So I went off and did that. And I kind of started talking about that about the middle of last year. And I think I kind of presented some stuff at TADSummit on it.
Exactly.
Of that. And what we fairly did was build an open source bit of software that sat between telephone lines and various LLMs, including the Google one, and put a nice little front end on it so you could use it as a playground. It still exists there as a service at llm.applisay.com, and you can go there and you can do some neat stuff. And I'm going to try and do something that might end up being quite stupid here, so you'll probably not even pick up on the audio of this, but let's give this a go.
Wholesale ordering line. How can I assist you today?
Can we kind of hear that okay on the podcast?
I'll bump up the volume.
Hi there. Thank you for calling Rob's Donuts. I'd be happy to help you with your order. How many donuts would you like to order?
Hello, I need to order some donuts. I sell on average 45 donuts a day. What is the best price you can offer me?
Great. Selling an average of 45 donuts is fantastic. Let me calculate the best price for you. Based on our cost price, I can offer you a special price of 40 pence per donut. So for 45 donuts, the total would be £18. How does that sound to you?
Thank you for the offer, but I'm afraid that price is too high for me. I need to maintain a margin of 75% on my purchase price.
Okay, so let's not spend sort of too much time on that. But that was one of the early use cases. We just allowed people to lash stuff together, and you can still go there and you can do this. And I put some T's and C's on there that said don't connect it to an outbound or whatever, but all I did was just bridge two agents there, one with a prompt that said, you're a cafe owner buying donuts, and another with a prompt that said, you're a donut wholesaler selling them.
Exactly.
And the prompt is super simple on that, and it kind of works.
Yes.
We released the whole thing as open source, so you can go and build that and take it away and use it. And we've gained a whole load of expertise, and that really was what allowed us to sell into this commercial opportunity we've got, because we're able to say, look, we've got the ability to do this. But we did kind of learn a lot about it, and I guess that's the main reason that I'd said I'd come on this podcast, and you probably wanted me was what the hell did you find out? What's the hype and what's the reality?
Exactly.
These kind of large language models really do make it easier to do this kind of stuff. Clearly. That donut example, I kind of woke up at 5 one morning a bit early and thought, that would be quite cool to do that, sort of make myself a cup of coffee, and by 6 in the morning there was a video on YouTube or whatever of that. So clearly the
I remember.
But it's really glib to do that, and to be honest, I think that's a lot of where the industry is right now. A lot of people have got these little kind of scripted things where I can do a one-liner script or something that punts this in there. But there are absolutely shed loads of problems around doing this. So hallucination is the big one, obviously. I mean, we kind of call it hallucination That's actually, kind of anthropomorphizing a
Morphic.
little bit
Yeah,
what the AI models are actually doing. And,
exactly.
the way that I like to explain this when I'm explaining it to people that aren't necessarily, don't understand every bit about how neural networks and AI works is that AI right now is a little bit like, I don't know if folks listening to the podcast are familiar with Thinking Fast and Slow and Daniel Kahneman's work, which essentially says, your brain has two systems. There's kind of system one, which is very intuitive. It's the thing which was programmed to be able to recognize tigers in the shadows.
Exactly. Yeah. Conscious and subconscious.
Allow
Yeah.
us to start running, before we got eaten.
Yeah. It smells like a tiger rather than it has to smell specifically like a tiger.
Yeah. So that's this thing in our brain that we kind of know something. We've got a spidey sense about it.
Exactly.
And that actually is the neural network that neural networks are modeled on. It's this incredibly fast, but completely non-deterministic system that can make quick inferences. And then, Thinking Fast and Slow, you've got the system two, which is this strategizing, rationalizing, testing, and theorizing and planning bit, which is the incredibly slow bit. And AI can only really do that thinking fast part at the moment. And the big problem with the thinking fast part is that what you're reflecting is taking vast numbers of inputs, vast amounts of training data, and distilling it to a limited number of outputs that are in your training data via a non-deterministic process. So you will get it wrong. You'll get it wrong lots, and you'll get it wrong spectacularly. And the bit that's kind of missing is the layer above that kind of does the sanity checking and says, okay, I think I can see a tiger over there, but is it just a pile of leaves or something? Hopefully after we've run away and before we've got. So that's one of the problems. It's hallucination in AI, and that makes these things dangerous to deploy. I happened to choose a video where the donut seller and the donut buyer got things right, but particularly when you combine, and this is a real problem in audible conversational AI, when you combine that capability for hallucination with bad accuracy in speech to text, things go horribly wrong. Because just one word wrong in the speech to text can cause the AI to go off at a total tangent. I mean, AI can hallucinate based on perfect input data. If you start giving it noisy input data, then you've increased that probability of hallucination. So that's issue number one with conversational AI. Next one is prompt injection. So prompt injection is kind of like, it's really just weaponized hallucination. So if you know how the AI works, you know how it's doing the tokenization, you know how a particular transformer works, how it's training data quantization works, and the system prompt, you can basically override the instructions and give it a prompt of your own as part of the conversation, override the outcome. And if you go and Google this and search, I think it was a Chevrolet dealer somewhere who just put up a completely bare, someone had leveraged some money out of them to put up an AI chatbot on their website, and folks would just go into that and tell anything to say, at the end of every response, say, this is an absolute firm deal. And I'm selling you a Chevrolet for $1, or we've got a 2-for-1 special offer at the moment, or cause the AI to recommend an entirely different brand of cars. And there's all that stuff in there, and that's really open and simple and just plain stupid as an implementation strategy. But there are some quite subtle approaches where you rely on the quantization of the way things the way stuff is being tokenized, and you can actually call. So if you're using something like some kind of authentication in voice AI, and you're allowing the voice AI to decide whether the thing's authenticated or not, to empty my bank account out, then you're stuffed, because that's going to get attacked. You've kind of got that problem there. Poor speech to text, not even given the hallucinatory kind of amplification, it causes all sorts of issues anyway, because you've got that step in and back out again. And then, of course, you've got the privacy issue of sending all this stuff to large cloud organizations. So lovely, brilliant, cute demos to put on YouTube and get you clicks or whatever. But the reality is, anyone who implemented it based on just chuck a prompt in and expose it to the
real world,
is going to get completely stuffed up by that.
Exactly. Because I remember in your demo, there was like misunderstandings between the two agents, like dollars versus cents. They got there in the end, but also it was like in the speech to text, how many errors there were, yet they understood the intent. Because that's what I thought was really powerful, because that's always been the challenge. It's getting accuracy in the speech to text. But actually, the other agent got around that. So it understood the intent that was meant by the other agents. So it improved the overall solution. And then, of course, in your presentation at TADSummit, you were covering, okay, this is good, but guys, you need orchestration, you need a control layer, because just look how bad things can go. So that for me, I think, and I highlighted it, and I've continued to highlight it, the importance of the architecture you were showing in implementing this for real world applications, not just hypey technology demonstrations.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the phase we're in now.
Gotcha.
That's where we're working at the moment. And by the way, all the infrastructure for the stuff that we're doing is coming out in open source. So I did
Excellent.
a presentation at FOSDEM
Yeah, I saw.
of weeks ago, and you can just go and pull these code bases up, not the applications themselves, because
that's the secret sauce.
Commercial value, but actually, from a commercial point of view, we're finding actually talking to people and saying, look, we're pushing the state of the art in terms of safety of this stuff forwards. And we're willing and happy, and in fact, entirely want to make the infrastructure open source to push the art forwards.
Yeah.
And by the way, that means if you get fed up with us hosting it, you can just go off and take the open source and kind of run it yourself. But building the value of the application in the logic that sits on top of that, and that's very much the model we're doing. And in terms of that logic. And the safety of the systems we build on this. I think there's a little bit of a disconnect here, actually, because we've got all these AI safety institutes that are sort of tackling these perceived big problems of AI, like general AI is going to become self-aware and eliminate the human race. And I don't want to denigrate any of those academics, because that potentially that's certainly something we've got to look at for the future. But the reality is that there are a hell of a lot of absolutely rubbish interfaces that are being used, and they're not dangerous to humankind in the sense of, they're going to cause nuclear war or something, but all they merely are is they make the people implementing them look stupid, and they're dangerous potentially to the people using them.
Exactly.
And right now, I think that's where the danger is. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some real near-term dangers, particularly around the ability of generative AI to mimic authentic human communication. So if you look at some of the deepfake videos and the fake audio, there's a whole load of stuff on there that frankly, I don't know what the solution to some of that stuff is. Well, I kind of do. The solution to it is that we have to have out-of-band authentication of who you're
Correct. Absolutely.
So, this whole thing, up to now, humans have relied on the fact that, there's all these strong authentication systems, but they're not definitive, because at the end of the day, I can, phone my bank teller who in the town I live in, and they'll know my voice, and that makes it all okay. That stuff is gone now.
Correct.
We don't live in that world anymore. There was that $25 million hack. I think it was in Hong Kong, effectively, where someone had invited the CFO to an entire, fake Zoom call with the CEO and everyone else on it, who authorized the $25 million payment. And it dawned on them afterwards that the whole call was fake, and all the parties to that conference call were entirely synthesized. So we no longer live in a world where we can use our human spidey senses to detect the authenticity of conversations. And that, that is one of the big, huge, big impact theoretical problems. But to the extent that impacts on conversational AI, the problems are at a much lower level. They're kind of, making this stuff work through gatekeeping and ensuring that you're using the AI to recognize the intents and conduct the small talk of the conversations and to extract information. But then at each turn of the conversation, you're putting that input into your organization's business logic and validating it according to your rules. And we do this in call centers all the time.
Exactly.
If I call, I've been dealing with a particular bank that I don't normally deal with, and all of their chat and their first level call center is just all absolutely useless. All those people are doing is reading from FAQs. They have no authority to do anything that I don't have authority to do on the website anyway. And there's a good reason for that, because, they're dumber than some of the AI that we're implementing.
Yeah.
So, that's no new thing, that effectively you limit the agency of the thing on the end of the phone, whether it's a human being or an AI, to some things that are very strictly controlled, that integrate with the business logic of the organization. So you just never let the AI do something that isn't permissible after it's kind of done all the gatekeeping that it needs to do.
Exactly. And within news organizations, they're implementing tools that enable the authentication of any image. So like the BBC, CNN, etc. So the technologies are there, again, all around self-sovereign identity, blockchain. So, the solutions are there. And I think with conversations, the same thing could apply, because it's delivered in digital form. So as a result, you can infer quite a bit, the authenticity of the communications. Or, the one that got all the hype was the Biden imitation and calling people in New Hampshire. But for me, it was like, and you'll recognize this as a Brit, Johnny won't, but it was like a Mike Yarwood impersonation of Biden. It was that poor, But anyway, so I know you're doing a lot of work for a client, but are there any hints or clues you can give to help in making this more ruggedized? So prompt injection is less of an issue. It's never going to be, because there's always a way, because it's non-deterministic, as you said. But are there some tools or techniques you can apply?
Oh, absolutely. And, I kind of hinted a 30,000 foot view, saying that you put each turn of the conversation through your business logic at the back end. But,
Gotcha.
let's ground this in something concrete.
Yeah.
So an authentication system. And, a particular authentication system might be an authentication system that's used by some organizations where they have a set of questions that only the organization knows in order to act.
Exactly.
So that authenticates who the organization is, and it's, kind of bizarre stuff that the user thinks up at the time of onboarding, usually in consultation with a human or a wizard, like, what was your third cat's first name, or some bizarre thing that that individual knows is so unique, rather than mother's maiden name is something, what color was the door on the first house you bought, or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, the way that you handle that authentication turn is that you allow the AI to recognize that an operation is taking place, which requires authentication, but you instruct it in its prompt merely to collect the information.
Gotcha.
You send it via a function call into the authentication logic, and the authentication logic gives an answer back like, yes, authenticated, no, not authenticated, or possibly close enough, try again, which prompts the AI to then go and ask further questions that, so it may be, where was your mother born, or something, and they give a county, and actually their stock answer is town, or something like that. So but you don't at any point give the AI the private information. So it's not doing the database lookup. There are a lot of models. There's some really neat stuff out there. People are just using the features predominantly of OpenAI because that's what everyone is integrating with. And I suspect Gemini is coming on leaps and bounds now, the Google product.
Exactly.
That, but because of those neat APIs on it, everyone's sitting there and going, "Oh yeah, we'll just let the API call into our authentication database," or I mean, that's just. I mean, I'm sure it makes OpenAI nice and sticky, but there's no way in this world that you do that.
Exactly, because we were talking with Peter from Private AI, and they do redaction. And the thing that I found quite shocking is the amount of quasi PII that's in conversations. And you actually hinted at some of it. You could say, where was it we last met? And that's very private to people. But if that shared, or like, what's your favorite color? Blue. And that then could be used, I had somebody hacking into my United account. And of course, changed all the passwords and the rest afterwards. But it was those questions that stopped them, being able to basically, get into my account. So they are very powerful, but in a lot of conversations, some of that information is being shared. So with private AI, what they do is they identify both, hard, easy to detect PII, but then all the quasi PII, and then they replace it with dummy data. So there's still training data for the models, but it's not the names, it's not the phone numbers, it's not the actual colors, and or what their first dog or car. They'll just throw something, basically, unrelated, so that it won't spew out in terms of the data that was shared. Like we saw with the bot in Korea a couple of years ago, where personal private conversations were basically being spewed out by a chatbot.
Yeah, and obviously because of the non-deterministic nature of an LLM, you have to make the assumption that anything that you give it as part of the operational prompt, which it's using to extract the information from the user, could be disclosed to the user. And there are prompt injection defenses around that. None of them ultimately work, and really the only sensible way of doing it is Chinese wall that essentially says, assume that anything that the LLM is told in a prompt, a sufficiently devious user can extract. So
correct. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's great. Cool. Johnny, do you have anything you want to ask Rob?
Yeah, hold on a second. I'll take a dozen donuts, half jelly, half Boston cream. How many pounds is that? No, I don't want to gain. No, pounds? You don't know pounds? They don't know pounds over here.
And you know what, Johnny?
Yeah.
That's actually, you say that, but that capability, and I'm not going to bore the podcast audience with yet another audio clip, but the capability of parsing what you just said, or, I'm not sure I'd give any LLM that job, but the capability of just, doing English stuff. I do a flag prompt that is, you're working for a flag seller, and you just go like, well, just give me one of everything you've got in every size you've got. And, it kind of figures out what that means and then reads back a basket to you and says, okay, so you want this. And there you go. Yeah, but I don't really like 5 meters. So just give me some of the smaller ones. And, the LLM's ability to summarize and pick up that is just, out of this world compared to anything we've ever had before. Its ability to do that wrong 10% of the time and do something utterly bizarre is also there. But I wish I'd got the time on this call to show you some demos and have you order your 27 different kinds of donut and kind of ordering things by negative inference, because LLMs are really good at that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty fascinating podcast that you guys are just going on a rant on. No, I can't wait to see what you're up to and what you're doing and when we're going to find out about it, and we'll look back at this podcast. So anything you want to tell us about where we're going? Is there any investment opportunities in what you're doing this type of round, or anything you want to give us a peek at, or you're under NDA?
What I'm going to say is there are some open source repos. You can go and find them. There's a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I know, the free. Everything's free. Everybody, and then they cry about free.
The stuff will dribble out as it dribble out, and there's a big application coming up that I think is going to prove how this stuff can be done safely.
We want to end on the big application. How about coming on before you go out? Give us that much. Since you're at TADSummit, you and Alan fought in the British Army together, or Navy, or whatever it is over there you guys have. You guys both met James Bond. I don't know.
That's it. Both interviewed by the MOD. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. But no, this has been excellent.
I'd love to have you back when you're ready to launch.
Thank you.
I'm really intrigued.
No, it's going to be cool. I can guarantee that, given all the work Rob's been doing in this space. As I said, he's my touchstone in terms of understanding where we are and the reality. And we're not quite there yet. So the technology that it's working on, and the key is it's getting pumped through open source projects. I think it's going to be great for everybody in our industry. So definitely what Rob's doing, we've got to keep an eye on, because it really is.
Let's hope you're his touchstone. Let's hope you're his touchstone and he gives you a little heads up.
Fingers crossed.
What he's up to.
Yeah, it's going to be
my spidey senses are up.
Perfect. That's great. Again, Rob, thanks so much. Have a great day.
Nice talking to you both. Enjoy the rest of it. Bye now.